Hello, WealthLab 8 users, Glitch here. Today we are going to cover what's new in WealthLab 8 Build 51. So it feels like it's been a little while since I recorded a build video. Let's take a look here in the release notes. The last one was Build 45 in September 8th. So yeah, it's been a while, but we haven't been slacking off. There's been a number of interim builds with minor additions and fixes in between, but today we have build 51 and we're going to talk about a major new feature, the number one requested feature in our wish list, and that is adding visualizers to the Strategy Genetic Evolver. So let's open up the Strategy Genetic Evolver. We'll open a new Strategy Genetic Evolver window. And for those of you who don't know, this tool uses a genetic algorithm to randomly generate strategies, finding the best strategies based on the criteria that you select, then mutating those strategies generation after generation to evolve profitable strategies based on your selected filters. So here we are using a filter called Low DD Evolver. This is a filter that I created based on the default Evolver filter. I added a new condition that limits the drawdown because I like my strategies to have a low drawdown. So only generated strategies that meet this filter condition will be included in the generation process. This will become important as we look at these visualizers after the evolver is complete. So what I'm going to do is run the evolution just on one symbol, TQQQ, daily data. We'll use all data and we will click start. So here we go. The evolver is processing the initial 20 strategies in generation 1. Looks like none of those strategies have met our selected filter criteria, so they were all thrown away. We've got 20 new strategies for generation 2, same things happening for generation 3. Let's see how long it'll take before we get a strategy to survive this process. Okay, so finally in generation 4 we have one. It is strategy 65. So it's buying at the close of the previous bar if the current candle is a neutral doji, and it's has several exits here. So we're now evolving a bit more variety here in generation 8. So we have a number of strategies going. What I'm going to do is let this evolver run for a while. I'll pause the video and then come back when we have a few apex strategies collected. Okay, so I see this has been running for a while and it's collected 3 apex strategies. So I am going to stop the current generation. Generation 8 is now completing. So the evolver stopped at generation 8, collected 3 apex strategies. So what the evolver does is generates a group of strategies by mutating the best performers in the generation. Eventually, it may come to a point where the top strategies are very similar to one another and future improvement is difficult. At that point, which is controlled up here by saying that the strategies are, in my case, 90% similar, that generation will stop processing and it will save the top generated strategy as an apex strategy. So if we click here in apex strategies, we can see we have 3 apex strategies collected. The first one took only 6 generations. However, apex strategy number 2 took 66 generations, and number 3 took 20 generations. You can click on each of these strategies to see its composition here on the right. And you could also right click or double click to open any strategy in a strategy window to run the strategy. But Let's take a look at what's new here now. We have a new tab called Tabular. So the new Tabular is a genetic evolver visualizer that is showing us the detailed results for every single strategy that was generated during this evolver run. So that's this current run right here that we stopped at generation 8. So normally you would only be able to see whatever strategies were the result of all of that generation. If you're interested in all of the strategies in previous generations, generations 1 through 7, and even the ones that were not allowed to pass because of the low drawdown evolver filter here, you can look at the tabular and see all of the strategies. I mean, if I scroll up here, you could see generation 1, generation 2, generation 3. This is all the strategies. You can filter them by generation. So right now we're looking at all generations. You could, bring in only the generation you're interested in, or you can view all of the generations. The results that are dimmed here are the ones that did not make it through the evolver filter and were discarded by the evolver. So you can do things like sort by annualized return, and we could see that there were some very high return strategies that were generated. However, I would guess that they had a pretty large maximum drawdown, 76%. So that was discarded by the evolver. But now you have all of the results here in Tabular. You could even open up this strategy and, let's run it and take a look at the detailed results here. Yeah, here's the 46% return, but you had to suffer through a 76% drawdown. Look at this equity curve here. Interesting how it shoots up and then collapses. So that's why the evolver discarded this one. So that is the tabular view. The other thing you can look at is the result of any of the Apex strategy runs. So we've got run 1, 2, and 3. Let's take a look at our Apex strategies tab again. So run number 2 had 66 generations. So if I look at Apex strategy run 2, this tabular view is filled with all of the strategies generated within those 66 generations. So pretty interesting. Finally, we have a last visualizer here, which is the generations visualizer. So this shows you on a generation by generation basis how the evolver result changed and improved over time. So you can look at any metric. We're here now looking at annualized return, and we could see how over the generations, the annualized return is showing the minimum and the maximum of the generation. That's this solid block. And then this outlined low opacity block is the minimum and maximum return of the strategies that did not meet the evolver filter. So let's switch over and look at Apex run number 1. So you can see how things started off up to a return of around 15%, and then the evolver wasn't able to beat that, but then finally in generation 17, it was able to push it up to 18.77 return that we wound up with for the best strategy. Let's look at Apex strategy run 2. So the results are a little bit kind of blurring together because there's not enough space really to show each line, but you can get an idea of how the evolver pushed, made some breakthroughs here, and then churned through until it was able to improve again and again and again until it reached a point where no more improvement was possible. Let's look at run number 3. So kind of similar picture here. So this gives you a great visual for how the genetic evolver is progressing over time. So that's it, guys. These are the new visualizers for the Strategy Genetic Evolver. And I'll show you one last thing, because if you're a .NET programmer, you can create your own tabs, your own Evolver visualizers, just like many other things in WealthLab. This is a plug and play architecture. And you'd go to our website, wealthlab.com, and click on support and then extension API. And the entry for our strategy evolver visualizers is right here. It gives you a rundown of how to create a .NET class library that will allow you to build your own strategy genetic evolver visualizers and get some new tabs showing us how the evolver progressed over time. I know Dr. Koch, for example, hopefully will create an extension for some new visualizers. He was the person who actually put in this initial request for the visualizers, and it's garnered some good support from the community, which is why we went ahead and were able to implement it for Build 51. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks for watching, everyone. I will see you all on the forums.